Live, Kim.
We're going to call the July 18th Special District San Diego LAFCO Advisory Committee to order. And can we start with roll? Kimberly Garner, present. Jack Beebe,
Present.
Ann Baldridge, here. Paul Bushy is absent. Jeff Beacon is absent. James Gordon.
Present.
Al Lau is absent. Hector Martinez, absent. Rachel Mason, present. Dave McQueen, present. Marty Miller is absent. Mark Roback,
Present.
Joel Scalzitti is absent. Mike Sims,
Present.
Oliver Smith is absent. There is a quorum with 8 members present. Thank you very much. All right, we will start with the pledge and the chamber.
Ready to begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
With any changes to the agenda by staff? Before we go to open expression, I'd like the chief, thank you for hosting us to maybe talk about house rules and what's going to happen.
So yeah, we're live for work in the store. Donuts and coffee, help yourselves. There is a restroom back here. If that one is busy, you can go straight through that door, take a left-hand turn, go through the kitchen, take another left-hand turn. And there is a boys and girls restrooms down there too. So that's it.
And then afterwards?
Yeah, afterwards, we're going to do a tour of what we do here in admin, and then we'll take you right across the street, which is our fire station number 4, and show you the operations over there. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, we'll take open expression for any member of the public, either present or online, that would like to address the committee. Okay, all right. With that, we are quickly moving on to consent. We have 3 items on consent. I would entertain a motion.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a first and second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, we are now on to our first business item, which is our legislative report. Apologize, haven't looked there yet. Who's briefing legislative? I am. Oh, thank you. Okay.
Good morning, committee members, analyst 1, Megan Trainer. And today's legislative report highlights key proposed bills being monitored closely by Cal LAFCO and your staff. And this item is being presented for informational purposes with an opportunity to provide feedback on staff activities moving forward. The report summarizes 7 bills under active consideration by this current legislative session that have the potential to impact San Diego LAFCO's regulatory and planning responsibilities. These bills touch on issues of local governance and transparency, healthcare service delivery, and regional coordination efforts, both state and countywide. The report tracks 7 bills, and of these 7, staff have identified 2 measures that warrant heightened attention, which I will review in one moment. And the first 5 track bills include AB 259, which extends teleconferencing flexibility through 2030, which San Diego LAFCO supported in March of 2025. The bill is scheduled for a hearing at the Senate Local Government Committee on July 15, 2025, and is still under commitment. AB 351 raises campaign contribution limits for agency officers, which is under reconsideration. SB 489 enhances public access by requiring LAFCOs statewide to promote online transparency, which is something that San Diego LAFCO is largely compliant with already. And the bill is currently pending review by the Assembly Committee. SB 740 extends the deadline for wastewater agencies reporting to LAFCOs statewide and is currently awaiting review by the Senate. And lastly, SB 777 expands LAFCO's roles to identify an agency to manage abandoned cemeteries. Cal LAFCO and other LAFCOs have raised some strong jurisdictional concerns around this measure, and this bill was re-referred to the Assembly Committee. And the two additional bills highlighted in orange here that warrant your attention are AB 356 and AB 448, both of which were authored by local Assembly Member Patel. AB 356 proposes a state-led working group to assess healthcare access in northern San Diego County, which is Palomar Healthcare District's service area. And initially, the working group had excluded San Diego LAFCO, and during our June 2nd LAFCO meeting, our commission voted to adopt a support if amended position and requested the inclusion of San Diego LAFCO in this working group. And on June 26th, the bill was read a second time and amended to include, among other changes, San Diego LAFCO as a member of the working group. And San Diego LAFCO supported a second letter of support following this. And we've also most recently learned that the author intends to transition this bill to a 2-year bill, which would provide additional time for LAFCO staff to finalize the MSR of healthcare districts, and in doing so, help inform the scope of work for this group established by the bill. And AB 448 authorizes the state treasurer to extend or restructure an existing bridge loan to Palomar Health, helping to ensure its financial stability and continued delivery of essential healthcare services. On April 30th, 2025, the bill passed out of the Health Committee and is currently on hold in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. And also during our June 2nd LAFCO meeting, the commission voted to adopt a support position, citing interest in ensuring Palomar Health's long-term viability and service continuity. And with that, this concludes my presentation, and we welcome the committee's feedback. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Questions, just curious on AB 356, who from LAFCO is included in that working group, or just kind of all of it?
Yeah, great question, Chief Sims. Thank you. So powerful record. We are going to work at staff. Currently, Adam Wilson is helping us with facilitating communications between San Diego LAFCO staff and the Assembly members team. And so TBD on who exactly on our team will be within the working group, but anticipate someone from leadership or apps.
I did have a follow-up question. So I noted on 356 that the committee, which LAFCO I guess will be on, reports its findings to legislation, but then you guys concurrently have an ongoing MSR. Which one trumps the other? Because LAFCO is set up by California legislation to monitor. Which one has the authority, or do they both different realms?
That's a great question. Maybe Keen can help make it more robust answer, but I know that what's anticipated, as Megan had noted, is that the author intends to transition it into a 2-year bill with the thought that LAFCO staff will finalize the MSR, have some conclusions and recommendations, and within the scope of looking at the MSR, also looking at, well, what topics did our MSR cover? Does it satisfy the topics that the Assembly member wants covered? And if not, then I think that the thought is that they would include that within their scope of work for the working group and for the report, to help make it a more robust and comprehensive review of the topics that she's interested in. So that's it. Anything to
No, the only thing I would maybe worth noting is that the Patel bill purposely includes, I think Ballbrook is part of the stakeholder, as well as organized labor. So that latter point, right, the organized labor, there's probably going to be a lot of analysis that LAFCO wouldn't do that the Patel bill would, as it relates to perhaps labor agreements, labor project agreements, all that kind of stuff. But the bigger policy issue to that bill and the other one is, right, hey, Palomar is not having a good run of it right now. And it affects all sorts of people here in Northern County. And so it got the attention of the Assembly member. I know it's gotten the attention of our commission, and it's a big issue. And every time you look into the newspaper, every so often, there's another article. You're like, wow, that's not a good signal.
I I do know the latest article talked about a plan for bringing it back. But one of the last ones I saw was they had outsourced operations whereby you couldn't get public access or the same level. Is that still what's happening?
They're still operating under Wholesale rock. They are there. I don't know all the details with respect to how that makes changes. That's Cielo or team.
Or maybe Rachel.
I don't know that I can say more than you. I don't believe that Mesa Rock is fully integrated into operations. I believe that the district is still overseeing both of that plans. But it's definitely challenged, right? And so, yeah, having Patel move this to the 2-year bill made much more sense. The initial bill was very rushed. The conversations were sporadic, not all the right players were involved. So slowing it down, moving it to the 2-year bill makes much more sense, allows appropriate stakeholders to be involved. I think we'll know a lot more once we get past this first initial part of the legislation.
How is the MSR going? Is it actually going or?
Yes, I think you'll hear a little bit of an update from Michaela.
In the next slide.
Yes.
Any other questions on any of the legislative items that we covered before we move on?
I just to offer up some stimulating connectivity. So this concept of SB 777, right? So here, the legislature is recognizing that sometimes private industries fail and they need a government to come in and assume operations. And so 777 is this idea that, hey, private cemetery districts that have endowments, ideally that endowment self-funds itself, but not always. And you're having private cemetery districts failing and that they can't keep up the cost of maintaining the grounds and whatnot, let alone any commitments that they had made in the future or in the past, right? And so it's this idea of, well, we need someone to kind of create a bridge to find a successor. Ideally, it would be a county, or ideally, it would be another public cemetery district. But some of you have powers in your enabling act that contemplate cemetery services. Whether, certainly that they may need to be activated, but it's reasonable to assume that that discussion maybe eventually would come to some of you saying, hey, Paul, what say you?
It's hard to collect revenue from your customers.
That's true. That's true. And that's what's happening, right? But government's in the business of, the community good. So anyway, something for you all to just kind of think about, how that bill may eventually find its way, because the county is not in the business of providing cemetery services. Special districts are, but some special districts are already tapped out, and some of you here representing on the dais have an economies of scale that LAFCO may tap your shoulder and say, hey, what say you?
Are you aware of private cemeteries in the county that this might be applicable to? That might be having issues in needing this in San Diego?
I am not, but we've never looked into it, right?
We do have a couple public.
Yes, yeah. We have a handful.
Right. So I did notice that LA LAFCO adopted an opposed position. You all also have an opposed position on this, or is it support 777?
I think at this point, because they've amended it to be a little more open-ended to give LAFCO flexibility on finding a successor, LA's no longer opposing it, and we would take their lead since it's the bill source is a problem up in LA, but it applies statewide. But it is a fundamental, this is going a little further, but what is a municipal service? Sometimes we ask, that broad question. It's left up to each LAFCO to decide what is a municipal service. And we had this long conversation with the Port of San Diego, and which we ultimately concluded, well, you provide a municipal service. No doubt. the care and interment of the human remain is a municipal service. So it's a field that I think will be interesting to see how it plays out.
So we're waiting for this bill to see.
This is one of, I think this is just a signal of things to come.
Any comments on that? Questions?
It's hard to build housing, let alone building new cemeteries, right? So there's economies of scale there.
Is there laws of what you can and can't do with this? Or is
I'm sure there is, but honestly, like if we're having trouble finding places to put new housing, think how hard it is to expand a cemetery. You know, no one wants a cemetery next to them. Well, it's quiet, true. Obviously, you know.
Well, I mean, you can look at the Temecula Cemetery District and look at what they've had to go through with the expansion of some property that they owned for a long time. And it has taken, I live out there, so it's taken years for them to get to the point where they can actually start any of the expansion of that. And it's been a little local drama.
I bet.
It'll be beautiful. Surrounded by vines,
Yeah.
great, but
Yeah.
it's expensive real estate as well.
Yeah.
But they've owned it for a long time.
Yeah, one of the benefits of going public would be the eminent domain function. Private's obviously going to do that, but anyway, I just think it's interesting context is what LAFCO does, what this board does, which is to identify current but future community needs, and definitely the idea of what are we going to do with our graying population as they need final resting spaces.
sort of grid?
You.
Oh, sorry.
Is my thought that, so if LAFCO's role now includes private cemeteries, and if you make them public or make them part of the municipal, that agency can conduct eminent domain to acquire additional land for.
Well, that would be a benefit that I would see. They're probably not leading with that as their
No.
justification, but
Yeah.
you need the ability to expand.
We're paying attention to this bill now. Do municipal water districts have cemetery fellows? I don't believe we do. It's public utility districts, correct?
No, so that's public utility district have a really.
I'm under the impression they do, but MWDs don't, but you could see where this is going, where there's the next bill will be a bill to expand the qualifying districts that can take this up.
We work actively to take business away from city. We're out.
You know?
Yeah.
Irrigation just moves out to.
Yeah.
All right, we will pay attention to this bill, and I like it that the timing on the MSR on 8356, that the MSR goes first and that we help inform the legislative workers. I think that's a great timing. All right, any other questions on the legislation of the session? Okay, with that, we are on to item 5B, which is perfect, is the current work plan update on high priority projects, the MSR on healthcare districts in San Diego County. Kayla, you giving us? No, thank you.
Yeah, so good morning, committee members and Cielo Peters, analyst 2 for the record. So before the committee today is a quick update on San Diego LAFCO's highest priority work plan items, the municipal service review on healthcare districts in San Diego County. So as part of our adopted 2025-26 work plan, which includes 30 total projects, the MSR in healthcare districts ranks number 2. So as a refresher, this MSR focuses on 4 healthcare districts in the county, including Fallbrook, Grossmont, Palomar, and Tri-City. And the review is being carried out in 2 phases. So phase 1 is currently underway and consists of a macro level analysis. We're examining core service areas across all 4 districts, looking closely at their capacity, demand, performance, and how their operations align with current healthcare industry standards. And each district's profile includes key information on the history and background of the district, service area boundaries and demographics, governance structure, financial standing, and any present and planned service capabilities. So this first phase follows LAFCO's standardized MSR format. Most of the report is being prepared in-house by LAFCO staff with contracted technical analysis provided by Progressive Healthcare, which is a subject matter expert in healthcare service delivery. And Progressive Healthcare has completed its technical report, which includes an evolution of healthcare in San Diego County, individual district evaluations highlighting key issues and challenges specific to each district, and recommendations for future actions. So that report is now under internal review and will be incorporated into the draft MSR. And while we're still finalizing the draft, early findings suggest financial challenges for some districts, especially when it comes to maintaining competitiveness with private healthcare providers. So currently we're targeting the completion of the draft number report for this fall. And after commission review and adoption, we will begin phase 2, the micro level review, which will serve as an addendum to the initial report and will focus on localized community needs, as well as how each district is evolving to meet those needs. So that concludes my presentation, and I invite any feedback from the committee, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments on the healthcare? Sorry. Is one of the things you're going to address, because I know this is a big issue, because I got phone calls at the water district about this, was the prenatal care offered outside of service areas. Is that going to be addressed in this comprehensive MSR?
I would imagine that we will touch on it. I'm not sure how deeply we'll go into it for this macro level review.
Okay.
But I think if that's probably a bigger concern, we'd go into it in the micro, but
I think it's already been addressed. Is that correct?
Well, so it got addressed a few years ago, but it is a issue for us now. So the background for the committee benefit is a few years ago, LAFCO green-lighted announced out-of-agency service set of approvals for Palomar to serve some community healthcare providers, these nonprofits that are, I'm blanking of their name, but they operated within Tri-City's boundary. Tri-City said, if you allow this to happen, we're gonna shut down our prenatal and our labor division, which they did. But I think it'd be fair to say that was gonna happen no matter what. However, those agreements that LAFCO authorized have now expired. So now the issue for LAFCO is, do we renew those agreements and or do we tell Palomar, either you expand your boundary out to overlap into Tri-City or we figure out something else. And so of course there's all sorts of political issues with that. So to what Michaela said, the MSR probably won't weigh into that, but separately we will have to readdress it. And one of the roles that we're looking for this body to provide is not only in the past to weigh in on contractual, or excuse me, boundary and jurisdictional issues, but we probably would come back to this group and say, let's say you, with respect to either renewing this out-of-agency service agreement between Palomar and these community healthcare providers, and bring that recommendation to the commission as well.
Would the alternatives generally be renew the agreements or adjust the boundaries?
That would be the easiest, two easiest alternatives. The other one is can't do it, Palomar. And we would be essentially telling those community healthcare providers trying to find a private remedy.
So that's coming, but it may not be in the.
Yeah, I think it would probably parallel, but it would be outside that MSR.
I would say of the topics that we've covered in the last 4 years, that one generated the most phone calls that any of us received. So I'm glad that you came up with a way to address it. Maybe long term, we can find something as well.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you for the report. All right, with that, we are on to item 5C, current work plan update. Another high priority project, municipal service review on wholesale water agencies in San Diego County. Priscilla, are you going down?
Yes, Your Honor. Priscilla Power, Assistant Executive Officer with San Diego County LAFCO on behalf of staff. Providing a relatively quick update on the progress and status of our high priority project focused in on completing a municipal service review on the San Diego County Water Authority, as well as the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. And as you'll recall, it does tie back to our adopted work plan. It is carried over from a prior fiscal year work plan, where staff has been working diligently with not only the agencies, but our consultant, as we'll call Dr. Michael Hanneman, who is helping us with the technical analysis and reviewing how both agencies, the wholesale water agencies, are performing with respect to providing wholesale water service to San Diego County, and specifically looking at supply, capacity, demand, among other topics such as rates, governance, organization, finances, and taking a look at those items. So we did receive, just as an update on where we're at currently, we did receive Dr. Hanneman's analysis this past week, and we're going to be reviewing that. There was an ad hoc working group that was formed to review our analysis and ongoing progress on the County Water Authority MSR, made up of 11 agencies, including Olive and High, Oceanside, Helix, Water District, among others. As far as next steps, we anticipate completing the MSR format with respect to the 7 sections that comprise boundaries, demographics, finances, among other things, really diving into all of that analysis so we can develop recommendations and conclusions. And then we will then transition into providing that draft with those recommendations to the agencies. And you'll recall that the commission adopted policy L106, which guides how we conduct our MSR process and outreach that goes along with it. So once we have those recommendations to all the analysis, we'll provide that directly to the 2 agencies, in this case, County Water Authority and Met. Provided them with 60 days to review the analysis, provide us with some comments, and then we anticipate coming back to that ad hoc working group of the 11 member agencies I mentioned, and getting your feedback on the agency comments and how we consider those comments and incorporate them into finalizing a draft MSR, which would then be made public when we go to the commission and presenting that. After that, we anticipate doing a 45-day public review and comment period before then finalizing a final draft for commission adoption. So I anticipate having something for the agency to review in the next few months, and then again reconvene the working group before going through the process with the commission. So that concludes my presentation there. But before I actually conclude, I did want to introduce our consultant Patrick Teller, who's joining us. He's taking over the responsibility as Chris Kate. You'll recall he left us back in June. But Pat, if you want to quickly introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey, good morning, Patrick Calle, state and local public policy consultant. Really excited to be part of the LAFCO team, work with all of you. Some of you from working on various issues throughout the years, and I look forward to working with all of you and happy to share my contact info and stay in touch. Thanks.
Yeah, and Pat will be helping us throughout this process and facilitating that hard working group among other things. So that I conclude and welcome any questions, or Keane, you had anything to add?
Yeah, well, so in terms of, maybe some bullet point issues that we anticipate maybe advancing to the forefront of this document. The context, of course, is when we were digesting the Fallbrook Rainbow proposals many years ago, 2 years ago now, the commission said, okay, not only do we think those proposals have merit, once we figure out an exit fee or an alimony, part of that recommendation was also at the time saying water authority is a mess, in the LAFCO perspective, in terms of, Dr. Hammond saying this business model just not working, Ballpark and Rainbow are not going to be the only ones who are putting their hands up and saying, we can't afford to stay. And so the commission back in 2022 or 23 said, prioritize an MSR and what are some options, right? If the water authority's not working, what are some options? And so now fast track, we've got this MSR now making its way through the internal process before it gets sunlighted. I think we owe it to the commission to revisit, well, what are options should this business model not be working? I think one of the bullet points that we're going to be offering up to the commission is, to their credit, the new general manager has really done a nice job of pivoting Dan Denham. And so there's like this 180-degree change in just how we at LAFCO have been interacting with the water authority much, much better. Like, that's one thing I think we will share with the commission right off the front. Where we were 2-3 years ago in interacting with the water authority, where it just was conflictual and just constantly with the threat of litigation. Now we've gone 180 degrees, I think with Dan's leadership, where it's open, it's positive. He seems to be really moving the water authority in a much better direction, at least in terms of transparency. That will be a key thing. It's still, though, this theme of governance and decision-making and, like picking up on, and it was discussed at the Ballpark Rainbow. Well, if Ballpark and Rainbow are leaving, it's going to have a 6% rate impact on the rest of the county. What happens when the city of San Diego's pure water starts to roll off and East County starts to diminish their need for traditional potable water size in Oceanside? And so that's part of the analysis in LAFCO, offering up our own take on what the financial impacts are going to be. And then what are some, possible governance remedies? So those areas of financial impacts, governance, and leadership, I think, will be 3 key themes. And I do just want to say, because there was a recent issue at the water authority that I read about, in which their general manager, or rather their general counsel, was taken to task. And I got to say, really surprised, because Edwards and certainly Denham have done a great job. And I'm just really surprised that they would be challenged by some of the board members of the water authority, because to me, as an independent agency officer, I'm like, man, water authority's really lucked out getting those 2 on board, because they've really changed the whole perception that a lot of people have had. You can say they're doing a really good job. So I wanted just to weigh in on that a bit.
Okay.
I just had, the last analysis Dr. Hammond did, it's very focused on this fixed variable revenue, which is kind of a rabbit trail in a lot of ways, because as a wholesale agency, as long as your projection's conservative, and you're seeing Met do this now, basically saying we're going to use a conservative water projection, then it doesn't really matter if you're fixed or variable, because you're structurally, projecting low enough sales that if you don't meet it, it's fine. The reason I say focusing on that becomes sort of a problem is then as retail agencies, that's a real problem, affordability problem, right? If you have this fixed revenue that you've got to divide up, that sets your rate structure such that you can't have a variable rate, because then you're taking on all that risk of sales, which is hard at the retail level. So I worry about putting too much into that, because the problem isn't necessarily fixed variable revenue, it's overestimating sales, because you don't want to have to deal with the reality of lower sales projections. So I just sort of, as a foreshadowing before that makes it out, and get all of us saying, great, but this is incredibly problematic from a retail rate setting, Prop 218, just to maybe get that feedback so we don't spend a whole bunch of time. And if you look at the stuff Met just did, I think they set us a policy at setting their sales at 75%, or, they're sort of dealing with that on that side. So it's just maybe something to shuttle back over. The other theme, I think it's great that you did it looking at not just the water authority, but the med service area, because, it seems to me one of the big themes is we have this overinvestment in San Diego County with all the projects we're doing, East County, pure water, desal, IV transfer, Twin Oaks, and how do you deal with that? And I think you've seen the water authority tact a little bit with this setting up agreements to be able to work through med and member agencies to maybe maximize and develop agreements to deal with that. I mean, there's really two ways. One is as agencies, you consolidate them, right? And so the conflicts and whatever don't exist because they own it together, or it's agreements. So you can deal with the same thing by, having agreements looking at stuff like storage, to storage, how to maximize the storage. So, hopefully that's something that sort of falls out of it. As we have all this water, but then we also have the commitment to pay for all those investments, but it does provide a benefit at large regionally for those that maybe don't, is kind of teeing that up to maybe help them start to move in that direction of, trying to get agreements with the idea that if you don't figure out a way to share that, then you could get forced into a model that forces you into something like reorganization, because now you can't functionally afford it. So I don't know if that's something that's kind of gonna play out in this or thought through it.
Well, not to put him on the spot, but he has experience with this, so I'm gonna look over to Pat. If Pat wanted to, offer up some observations, given, your familiarity with being a former City of San Diego member, looking at this from that perspective, but also, what we're trying to do is provide value. I think it's fair to say we're not going to come in with, a recommendation to blow up or to affirm. We'll probably just offer up reasonable observations and go from there. But Pat, any initial thoughts about how LAFCO can be most valuable in this process?
Yeah, I think to some extent it's pointing out the issues that you're talking about. To the extent there are structural issues that need to be overcome, or things that aren't happening because the incentives aren't correct for certain folks. I think you want to point that out, whether that results in some kind of structural change or not. We want to point those out and give people the facts they need to move forward constructively. And I think that's our goal, is to put something together that is constructive and gets people potentially thinking creatively. And as Keen just said, there is an executive director over there who is trying to do things to some extent differently. And so we're hopeful what we do is constructive for everyone involved, and results in movement to take care of some of these issues, because there's a lot and they're not going away.
Any other comments, questions? I did, I know that when Chris was looking at this, he said we had to pick a point in time for the finances, right? We couldn't keep going as we went on. But I would hope either we address it or acknowledge the settlement that recently happened and how it does change the financial future. I think even though it just happened, and I think we started off at the end of 23 on the finances. I think that should be noted. I would also note, if you're talking about leadership change, and I would put Mr. Edwards in there with Mr. Bennett, as you wouldn't have got the settlement without both of them and the current leadership. So just hoping that we can acknowledge the settlement, and it does change things looking going forward. And it changes not only the water authority, but issues at Met.
Absolutely.
And then obviously looking, there was a small section in the Hanneman's original report on governance structure, all of that, for your ideas on that as well. So, Mr. Roback.
All right, so how long did we engage Chris K to work on this?
Earnestly, I think fiscal year 24, 3? Yeah, 23 we got done with the detachments, I believe. So fiscal year 24.
All right, so think a lot of us have been anxious to see what, was gonna come out of that. Of course, that's now in Patrick's purview, but did Chris turn over work product? I'm assuming, what exactly was accomplished?
Quite a bit.
I'm not saying he didn't, but I get to see what's come out of that.
Yeah, I think, Dr. Hanneman was working to finalize everything. We were working with the agencies to get data collection and that process.
So Chris was more focused on what he was coming.
He was more focused on ensuring and facilitating all of the data collection and the outreach that needed to happen between the agencies.
He was working with sorry to cut you off, but he was working with the general managers ad hoc.
Yes.
And just so we're clear on what that is, that's, is it not the general, when you said, we could have said OTI, or you said OTI, it's not me. It's not Myers, it's, this general manager, so, not that that's a bad thing.
Well, it's about data technical information.
Right.
And Dan Down is on that work group as well,
Right.
Waterford's on that, and it was.
I'm not,
Data.
I think it's a good path, I'm just saying, so what I'm trying to get at here is, Al, and I mean, the people I know that are on this, the general managers of the Rock Solid Group, not disputing that, but what exactly is our role as a special district advisory committee? Are we just at the end of the day looking at what those recommendations are? How are we weighing in on that?
Yeah, and I think the thought is that whenever we do receive that, give the agencies the 60-day technical review period to review all of the analysis and the recommendations that come from it, is to then do LAFCO's continuation of outreach, which would include reconvening that ad hoc working group that you're referring to, but then also making presentations to this group here to get all of your feedback and ideas with respect to the recommendations and conclusions that are coming out of it.
Right, okay, I want to make sure we're, thoroughly involved in that as well, Although there's there's duplicity, I get that, because all the people that are on that group that are in this room. Okay, so how are we interfacing on the net component of this? Because there's a lot of inherent efficiencies there too.
Absolutely, and I think so Adam Wilson is helping us with that side of things. I think Pat is going to help us with that as well. And it's been sort of the same process with just doing the data collection, letting Hanneman do his thing with respect to the analysis and data collection. And we're going to go through the same process of just, diving into it, developing some recommendations and coming back to you all with those to get your ideas and feedback.
Right.
So following that same process.
All right, because the way I'm looking at this, the whole idea of LAFCO is delivering services in the most efficient manner. So in my mind, there's no sacred cows. Everything's on the table, right? How can we deliver water in the most efficient manner possible for the ratepayers? So that's paramount. So
Yeah.
I think we got to keep all that in mind.
Great.
That's all I got. Thanks.
And I guess it's the goal eventually to have sort of concurrent from this group to support the recommendations. Ultimately that would be the goal, right? So you go to the commission, get an ad hoc group that went through the advisory committee. Everyone said looks good.
We just changed our rules.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Could be it comes to us and there's 3 recommendations and we said, well, there's 4 and 5. Can you go back and look at 4 and 5? Right. You're right. It would be and then staff would say sure or no or whatever.
I think it's reasonable to assume that we'll get a lot of feedback, good and questioning that will merit more than one memo or addendum that will be presented. But this group will be looked at because you do have, and maybe just to poke back at Mark about this concept of LAFCO's main mission is efficiency. Yes, but within the government framework, right?
Of course.
So, but that's big, qualifier, right? The governance component of it. Ideally, what we would get out of this group is validation and or recourse or course correction on some assumptions that maybe Hanneman Chris and Pat and we've made where you bring something to light and we have to go back and create an addendum to address it. But while I think it's reasonable to assume we'll have a draft out at the end of this calendar year, I assume it's gonna take a while to get to the commission. Because we're gonna probably come to you and you're gonna say, hey, we're not ready to weigh in on this formally until you address our questions. So it's gonna take a while. And in the interim, again, going back to my initial comments, I think staff certainly feels less urgency right now than we did a few years ago, because we do see the water authority making a lot of, good changes in how they go about their business. And to the point where, a few years ago, there was a kind of a dark cloud. But now, feel like the changes at the water authority, the general manager and council, like, okay, it's moving in the right direction. Hopefully LAFCO can add value to that direction change.
I think just follow on Kim, one of the big things during the admin was just the transparency issue, right? And a lot of requests got sort of vague explanations of why legally they wouldn't be provided. It seems like that isn't the issue anymore. Any information that's being requested is being provided. It's not sort of this. Well, so would you say that's kind of a big change you've noticed that sort of alleviates some of that concern?
You don't feel like you're in a deposition at every
I think Al has some phones.
I do, I'm sorry.
So it's just more of a question for staff as well. I know the water authority currently they're looking, getting together with GM, looking at business processes, improvements, or business model discussion, as well as developing a long-term financial outlook for the water authority.
Yeah.
Just more of a question for staff in terms of, seems like there are parallel data and information that's being developed by the water authority as well. How is that going to feed into the MSR process?
Yeah, I think ultimately just taking, reviewing what they're trying to accomplish or going to accomplish through, their efforts, and then just weaving that into our recommendations or conclusions. Where they'll defer keen to.
We may get to the point where they come up, this side group comes up with an interesting perspective, and maybe we say to the commission, hey, let's come back in 2 years and see what becomes of this.
Any other comments, questions? All right, so I'm kind of looking in your timeline with a couple months on Hanneman report, 60 days to the agencies, then back to here and the other work group, and then eventually and so we're probably looking at the draft or report mid next year. Is that a ballpark on the timeline? But with the agencies getting it by the end of this year.
Yeah, the agency's getting it by the fall.
Okay.
At the very latest. And then going through all of our outreach and processes, and then hopefully by spring of next year we'll have it for the commission.
Perfect. All right. Yes. Are you raising your hand or are you pointing it out?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, just one last question made me think about it. Dr. Hanneman's not terribly cheap and he charged 12 working Rainbow. I'm assuming it was similar hourly costs. What do we spend today on this?
I don't know what we've spent to date, but I think we're still under contract.
What's the contract? I don't even know what that is.
What was the contract? We weren't going to spend more than 120,000 on it.
Okay.
That's stand now to this year.
That's not bad. I mean, the water authority is almost $1 billion a year budget, and the net is really what, so.
Michael is very good and very efficient using that word. The challenge we have is he's also a professor, so his availability ebbs and flows with his classes.
Thank you. Thank you for your report. I think we are concluding this item and moving on to item 5D, which is special governance study on Oceanside Small Craft Harbor District, which I believe is a result of the recent Oceanside MSR. Kelly, are you briefing this one? Yes, thank you.
So, hello again, committee members and Calle Peters, analyst two for the record. So the item before you serves as a follow-up to the Oceanside MSR, as Kim said, approved by the commission in November of last year. And specifically upon the commission's request, we're bringing forward a preliminary scope of work for a proposed special governance study on Oceanside Small Craft Harbor District to evaluate the possibility of independent governance on the district. So this is being presented for your review and discussion today with the opportunity to provide input before staff finalizes the scope of work and brings it back to the commission for final. So to provide some context, San Diego LAFCO completed the scheduled MSR for the Oceanside region in November 2024. And that review covered 3 agencies, including the city of Oceanside, Oceanside Small Craft Harbor District, and the Moore Hills Community Services District. And as part of that process, we received significant community input, especially regarding Small Craft Harbor District's governance structure and concerns about decision-making transparency, public safety, and financial oversight. So in response, the MSR included a recommendation which encouraged the commission to consider a future governance study with the primary goals to assess the feasibility and merits of transitioning Small Craft Harbor District from a dependent district currently governed by the city of Oceanside to an independent special district with its own elected board and full administrative and operational authority. So this would include analysis looking at both functional and political alternatives, including the legal, financial, and service-related implications of the reorganization. So on the screen is a high-level summary of the preliminary scope of work tasks, which are including their intended completion date for the committee's review. And the scope of work can be found in more detail in attachment 2 of the linear agenda packet. And the plan is for LAFCO staff to manage the study and hire a technical consultant for the more specialized complexity analysis. So our goal is to begin the project with stakeholder outreach in September of this year and have a final report completed by December 2026. So in closing, today's discussion is intended to gather any initial input or concerns you may have, particularly on framing of the study objectives, structure of the analysis, or any specific issues you believe should be addressed. And after receiving your input, we will finalize the scope of work, present the final to the commission, and begin our engagement with harbor stakeholders. So we look forward to your thoughts and appreciate your role in shaping this important next step. Thank you, and happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? I guess I had a couple. If you create an independent special district on the harbor, I'm assuming that Oceanside's been getting revenue thus far from it, and so now the revenue would go to this independent special district to reinvest in the harbor. Is that kind of the thought?
Yeah, I imagine something like that. They are an enterprise district as is, but since they're under the city of Oceanside, there's been some confusion with, or they've been receiving the revenue for that for all of their harbor activities. So I think the goal is for, or at least what the harbor is expecting, is if they become an independent district, they would have control over their finances.
And is City of Oceanside, are they have an agreement with moving this forward?
Yeah, we've talked with the city manager, Jonathan Borrego, and he's on board with the study. Not sure what his exact feelings are about them becoming an independent special district, but he has been supportive of the study and giving us any information that we need. So
If it was an independent special district, the people that would vote would be the slip ventures.
yeah, so it's kind of complicated because the harbor is under, or their sphere of influence is coterminous with the whole city of Oceanside right now. So it would involve the whole city and their registered voters.
Oh, is this the last bill, the whole city has to vote for them to break out as a special district?
Yes.
Well, I was saying who would vote for if you had an elected for the harbor district.
Yeah, no, so that does pose an issue because residency is of course usually the place where you say, yeah, you're a registered voter or not. So there are elements, moving targets to this whole thing, but the fundamental is you have a group of 1,000 people who are in the port.
Probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who believe that they are putting all this money into a harbor district. From their perspective, getting very little out of it, and they believe that the city is profiteering based on all of this. The city says, no, 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 they're getting a free ride on us. So a fundamental part of the scope of work is premised on doing this more deep dive into the financials, into LAFCO being able to independently say, okay, this is how much money the harbor community is generating, and this is what they're getting out of. We're not presupposing one way or the other, but hopefully we'll at least answer the question for both sides' benefit. Okay, this is what is truly being generated from this area, where it's going right now. The other part is the community is saying, we want police protection. The level of police protection in the harbor is not to their liking. And there's certainly been some news coverage of the troubling issues. In order for them to get the level of police protection they want, some change has to be done, whether it's a latent power reactivation for the small craft harbor or something. But I think it's fair to say neither side is happy with the baseline, but there's disagreement onto whether the harbor as an independent being could be self-sufficient and do the things they want to do.
It just seems that the end governance model, that people renting the slips understood that end governance model would be the harbor district, which you then probably have to do districts. To see that, like, 5 districts that were all the city of Oceanside, none of them would actually be able to vote for the representatives anyway. It seems like from an independent district governance model, that probably isn't going to be what.
Well, you can't have an independent district based on landowners, right?
Okay.
And right now, the assessor does come in and create unsecured assessor assignments because of the votes.
Okay.
So there is a measure to create that, but again, it's different from your traditional registered voter decides.
But it isn't just boat slips in the harbor. There are also businesses operating in the harbor, and those businesses are generating a significant amount of tax revenue for the city of Oceanside, right? That they are getting. So that should be another question. I had Jim Wood gave me a tour. There's some kind of business that has eels, that apparently these eels secrete something that makes a lot of money, and Oceanside got a lot of tax revenue. I would think then that revenue goes to the harbor district if it's independent, which I would hope be part of the analysis, because it's not just slip owners down there are businesses as well.
Yeah, that was my question too. And as a dependent district, my question, do they currently receive portion of tax revenue from the harbor operations associated with it? If that's the case, that part analysis need to parse that out as well. Because that revenue, if they become independent, how do you divvy that up between the city of Oceanside and new special district, whatever that may look like?
Or does the city get any?
Right. Exactly.
Maybe they're the idea is, well, no, that's the harbor district.
We're not, as a resource conservation district, we're an independent special district, and our board members are not elected or appointed. So if you need to look at a model like outside of the election and share how we work.
Who appoints you? The board of supervisors. Oh, county board of supervisors.
In the, and to be residents in the.
They do, or they can have a landowner that's a resident in the district and be their proxy. So that landowner can appoint that person.
But, to Michaela's comment about, so we're going to create a stakeholder group. Would there be interest for this committee to have someone assigned to that stakeholder group? We would welcome it. Not.
Yeah, I didn't find it.
So maybe the chair can consider and make an appointment here or later, but that would be welcomed on our end.
When are you starting this?
September.
September.
Someone who perhaps wouldn't have trouble traveling to and from Oceanside.
Okay. Everyone's whispering what you. You would consider that punishment, which is why I think all of you are whispering bushy. How about we'll have anyone who's interested reach out to me and we'll let them, especially those who are absent know, and we'll book an appointment. And should I follow up with Michaela? Perfect. I think representation would be good. I think this is also a great example of what you just talked about, completing an MSR, and then maybe there's an issue that you need to follow up on. This obviously, this and I think the Moral Hills area were the two that came out of the last MSR. So I like kind of seeing that you're taking action on something that you found in MSR. So thank you for that. All right. Any other questions, comments? This is going to be an interesting one. All right. With that, we are on to committee member reports. Are there any committee member reports? Anyone want to offer anything that is going on at their agency?
Yeah, point of interest at our county chiefs meeting, we're having the water authority come do a presentation. It's on like Water 101 for all the fire chiefs.
Okay.
So I'd like to invite Blake Bath, who's our president. I'm just the lowly secretary. Any of the water districts would like to come and see that presentation and interface with the chiefs and the water authority. His name is Michael above. But he's doing the presentation. It says it's going to be about 30 minutes.
When is this? Do we know?
August.
Thursday, August 7th, 30 in the morning. And I can send out to the water authority.
Yeah, it sounds like someone from the water authority is giving the fire chiefs and water.
At the water.
No, this is San Diego County Chiefs Association meeting. We actually meet at the county sheriff's.
Right next door to Quanta's office.
Yeah, quarters office. Going back to the.
But I'll send him the details and
We can send it out.
everybody interested.
And to dovetail into that, I gotta say thanks to Albert and Kim. Albert came and did a presentation. Kim sent a representative. It was Tim Schutte. Did I say that correctly? So we did call town hall meetings. You guys remember the fires that happened up in Calle? What that podium looked like? We wanted to show the opposite of that. So we invited all of our cooperators. So we had OMWD there, we had SFID there, we had San Diego County Fire Water Authority there, CAL FIRE, SDG, Red Cross, San Diego County Sheriff. Everybody got a 15-minute presentation up there. It was just blitzkrieg. But we pushed a lot of information to them. And I think it was about 150 slide PowerPoint presentation, but it was done in 2 hours. And the whole point of that was literally just to educate and empower them. This is a community thing. Fire chief can't do everything. The water districts can't do everything. The other part was to squash rumors and to actually give them facts. Why does a hydrant system work? And where's your water source? To hear you guys have pumps and generators, lessons learned from 2007, use gravity fed, we got reservoirs, all this comes together in one huge presentation. So it was really good. That was just this Wednesday. So we have another one on July 30th, which is going to be over at Air Station 6. But we had one slide up there that literally had everybody's insignia or patch. So when the general public looks at you sometimes and they just, yeah, you're the weak gazelle and pick you off. There was a lot of patches up there. There was a lot of unification. Set a good example to everybody there. At the very end, we just said, hey, the score is 0-0. Meaning today's day 1. 0 lives lost, 0 homes lost in our district. So let's keep the score that way. And that's what we're here to do. this is where this meeting like this is networking and relationships. To have met Kim and Al and bring them in is awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so at the fire safety council San Diego County, did I send a staff member to like?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Can I grab the details after?
Sure thing. But great education. Yes, sir.
So on this topic of readiness and all that, SDG&E, how are they involved in the planning of not only like figuring out how they shut off or turn on power, but you know where their less than visible sources of potential issues are?
We get
You'll have to come. to the next meeting.
alerts, you gotta come. Yes, all of a sudden, all of our emails and phones stop ringing, and they know the likelihood which zone is likely to get shut off and how many hours until they think it's going to be a problem. And we all get updates with our designated folks. So SDG&E, we all learned that, I think back in the 07 fires, how vital their power shutoffs are to continuing operations. And so now it's integrated. And we get inundated with information and alerts. And sometimes they say, hey, you're likely to get shut off, and then the fire gets controlled, the red flag goes down, and then it doesn't happen. But at least then out there preparing, okay, how can we shift water? What generators do we need? Yeah, it's actually, if you come to this, it's a great lessons learned, because we all learned power, water, fire, we all need each other during these events.
That is one very important part of SDG's role in a fire situation. The other part is they fund a helicopter, water dropping helicopter. They, nothing more, but they did have private fire service that they engaged that would go out and protect their infrastructure, which then frees up our resources to protect homes and other things and attack fire. So they're a great partner in the region with the fire service, and foster that over probably the last decade plus. They give us money to train. I mean, they really are a good partner.
Here are assets that we get from SDG&E. First 2 hours are paid by SDG&E, and the county picks up the other 2. So we actually get 4 hours as an incident commander free based on those 2 agencies picking that up. They're not cheap. Yeah, exactly. Tom Porter came from SDG&E to speak on behalf of SDG&E, but he also wore a different hat before he came over there. He was a director for CAL FIRE, and he was here for the Ridge Creek and the Harris, so he could dovetail both sides of that conversation nicely together. But he had specific PowerPoint slides on the public safety power shutoffs and how does this happen and why does it happen. And one of them was a slideshow that showed all the different wind speeds that can happen here in the district, and if that triggers, you're shut off. Which actually triggered one of our stations that we took over law enforcement Army Grove. Station 6 is literally just a Butler building. We did a ton of TI works over there to make that thing a real fire station. But we also realized there's no backup generator. So we just finished a $500,000 solar project on that station out of our pocket. So that last night when we had a lightning strike and it shut off the power, the lights come back on at our station 6. So the timing could not have been better. So, but the slideshow will be available on our website on August 1st. So you guys can look at it. And it is every agency that's on there. So
When's the meeting? July 30th?
July 30th, station 6 over here in Elfin Forest. So we totally, it's gonna be from 4 to 6.
Station 6.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your leadership in setting this up.
Like I said, it was just, we're gonna do the opposite of what that podium looked like up there. I think the general public saw that. So yeah, kudos to you guys and thank you for your representation.
Thank you for facilitating, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all I had in report.
Great report. Anyone else, any other committee members have anything they'd like to report? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, okay.
It's just 2 quick things. One is, you may remember a couple of years ago, we collaborated with LAFCO on a Department of Conservation SALC grant and a few fun. They have the printed digital,
Wow.
like pretty versions of that report. So I brought a couple to share with LAFCO, but if anybody else is interested in receiving a copy, I can send it electronically or a hard copy too, so just let me know. And then on a related ag note, our CD runs a water efficiency, irrigation efficiency program for farmers and ranchers. Funded by a grant through the California Department of Food and Ag, and it ends in December. So we're really trying to get the word out on for the last half of the year for any producers who want to participate. So if your agencies would be interested in promote that to your members, that would be great. I have a digital flyer.
Thank you. It sounds like we're making a bunch of things to
Yeah.
share after the Senate meeting. Great, thank you. Any other committee reports?
How's the presentation go over to Secretary?
Oh, the Senate hearing on the electric vehicles and exempting. So the one I was in was unanimous. Passed with unanimous support, but then it got pushed to become a 2-year bill. At the very end, it was unanimous all the way through until it needed to suspense, and so now it is a 2-year bill. I have been pushing CSDA to bring it back next year, because the line of support was down and across the room. All of the counties across California showed up. Water, city, fire, all showed up in support of it, but it got held. So it's now a 2-year bill. If you guys want to reach out to CSDA and tell them that exempting vehicles that we utilize in emergencies as water agencies is important, let them know that so they can bring it back.
Support letters.
And support letters help. Oh, yeah. Me being able to testify that one of the letters in the support is my own fire chief. And that was nice.
Or disheartening to have a water district thing, the truck die. Honestly, we actually had a fire chief. We thought their agency was great. Let's put them in EVs. Guess whose truck died on an incident?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty embarrassing.
Dave told me if we go EV, that we'll have a special generator for. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Maybe have a hitch with the e-bike behind.
No. Any other committee reports? All right, with that, we are on to the executive officer report.
Nothing much to add in addition to just noting the arrival of Pat. I did want to just make a comment because she's been presenting at the last few meetings that Joelle had her baby girl this week. So the Lockwood family has expanded in that capacity. And we'll probably be looking to bring in some temporary assistance while Joelle's resting at home with family. And then at our next meeting, which is August 4th, we assume we will get a public member finally appointed. There was some inaction at our last meeting, but I think Bridget Browning will get her appointment. And then on Tuesday, this Tuesday, the Board of Supervisors, now that they have a full slate of members, is taking up their appointments, and it appears based on the recommendation by Acting Chair Lawson Raymer that the new supervisor, Paloma Aguirre, will be on LAFCO, as well as Stephanie Montgomery Stepp. So we'll have some new perspectives on LAFCO shortly.
It seems it's constantly changing.
Indeed. So that's all. Thank you.
Bridget Browning is currently the alternate public member, and you anticipate she being the public member. Does that then open up the alternate public member?
Yeah, and there's a bit of telegraphing here. So the motion that was not able to get all of the necessary check marks at our last meeting was to make Bridget the regular member and Eileen Delaney, who's a Culver resident, the alternate. That failed, but Vice Chair Willis, who at the time was not supportive, has asked that that item come back, which signals that he's ready to support it. So that's why I assume all this will play itself out at the next meeting.
Thank you for that clarification. All right, that
That's all.
we can report? All right, any other items for the good of you? We are adjourned and we have a tour.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so actually, welcome to Rancho Santa Fe Fire Protection District.